We will now turn our attention to the report, which was informed by more than 170 submissions and interviews with youth, parents, and caregivers. Our speakers will walk us through the report's findings and some of the key recommendations to better support young people with special needs. If you are a member of the media, please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. Please welcome Irwin Ellman, Ontario's Provincial Advocate for Children and Youth. No. Salvatore D'Agostino and Holly Zhuang, Youth Amplifiers for the We Have Something to Say project. And Rana Nazrazadani, a member of our Youth Advisory Committee. I would like to invite Irwin Ellman to start things off.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you all for being here. I want to also thank the young people who are with us today. I'd say to you, and I'll probably have a lot to say to you, but today would not have happened without you. This is your day, your report, your time to be heard. And what you told me is your time to begin moving the mountain. Thank you to the young people. I hope everyone gives them a hand even before they've started speaking. I have notes, and I'm feeling kind of emotional about today and just seeing everybody here, and very proud to be here. Proud to walk, work alongside the young people who live with what's called special needs in the province. And I use the word special needs, most of you know that that's the term used in our legislation. The young people of our advisory committee, 40 strong, told me they don't particularly like that term, but it's a term that's in our legislation and defined in our legislation. So if I use it, please forgive me. I'm using it because it's in our legislation. I'm very proud to be here. I think of our office, and I think about what our task is. And our legislation says that our office is to join with young people, partner with them to bring their issues forward. That's the definition of advocacy. And when people ask me, well, what do you do? Many people do. I think about all the policies and programs, the promise of our systems for young people in my mandate. And then I think about what we hear when we partner with them about their lived experience, and I think about the gap. I think about the gap between all the real effort and good, hard work that many of the people in this room do to try and provide for young people in my mandate, and I think about what their lives are like, the gap between all of that, the good intentions and what life is really like. I think about all the paper and action plans and strategies and policies and IPRCs and IEPs and teams and EAs, and you people in this room know what I'm talking about. I think all of that and what life is like for children and youth. Think about that gap. And our office's role, I think, is to fill the gap with the voice of children and youth. And we do that, and I think we're supposed to do that, because when that happens, there creates an opportunity for change. And that, for me, is why we're here today. We're here today for a group of young people who are in that definition of special needs, whose life is very different than the promises of the systems that we have designed to support them. And I think we need to hear from them in order to make the change and move the mountain. I think about the gap, and I think it's important to acknowledge this, the gap that exists for First Nations children in the province, particularly those in the north, who, if there's a chasm for most young people with special needs, the gap for First Nations children is immeasurable. And Jordan's Principle Day is today, the day to honor the implementation of Jordan's Principle. And it's important to hold this event today and to acknowledge that First Nations children have to have special consideration in terms of what needs to be done to ensure that they have everything they need to live a life that's full and they achieve to their full potential. I want to say one more thing before I hand it over to our amplifiers and our youth advisor, talk about the report. The young people who are going to speak here on stage and then at the listening table, 17 young people at the listening table, they're very nervous, and it's very difficult. They're going to talk about their experience, their lives, their hopes, their struggles. And when they talk, I think it's important to acknowledge that they're talking about what they wish to talk about, and they're letting go and not talking about some of the things they're thinking about. And those things that they're thinking about are just as difficult to think about as what they say. I want to acknowledge their courage and their strength and their willingness to put themselves out there, not just for themselves, but for young people like themselves and young people who are part of this project, and I think children who aren't even born yet, who might be born with special needs, because they want to create change for them too. And they're putting themselves on the line, going to places where most of us wouldn't go, prefer not to go, to create change. We owe them, the province owes them a debt of gratitude for the work that they've done and will do. I want to thank them again. And the last thing I'd say that I would want to emphasize is that this is for our office, but I hope for the province. It's a historic day. I don't think this has ever been attempted before, where young people of all stripes come together and speak to decision makers about their experiences around this topic. In fact, some of us were told when we thought we needed to do this piece of work that it wasn't going to be possible to do. We could never get both the adults at the same table and the young people at the same table. Young people with autism, young people who are physically disabled, young people who have learning disabilities. But we did, and they did. And I should say, we didn't do it, they did it. They're here, and they're speaking with one voice. And the mountain needs to be moved. This is just the first step. We, as an office, say to our government, to our service providers, to the change makers that are in this room, in addition to the young people, that when young people hand you this report, my experience is they're not going to let go. Because when they hand you this report, they're saying, this is our experience. It's okay. It's not what you wanted it to be for us. But we want to work together to make it different. And if the government, and I say that because we need the leadership of the government, says, we're not letting go of your report either, and we're glad you're holding on. We will work with you. We will develop a process to figure out together how young people with special needs and ourselves and all the other partners that we work with can come together to figure out how we can do better. If the government says that, in that statement, they will be making change, because they will be telling those young people, you are no longer a spot on a wait list. You are no longer a patient in a hospital. You are no longer a person to be studied, an object to be studied. You are a human being. You are a person who has rights. You are a person who has a future. You are a person who the province needs to fulfill your potential. And that's what today is about, that first step. And our office will continue to be alongside these young people, the hundreds of young people, hundreds and hundreds of young people who made submissions, and the young people who are part of our advisory committee. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Nikki. And thank you for being here once again.
Thank you, Erwin. I'd like to turn it over now to three extraordinary individuals, Holly, Salvatore, and Rana, who work with our office to elevate the voices and ideas of young people with special needs through the I Have Something to Say project. For every initiative and at every step of the way, we involve young people to guide us and inform us. Their lived experiences are invaluable, and we work closely with them to ensure that we're effectively elevating their voices and ideas to create meaningful change in the care systems. Over to you guys.
This video expresses the undying voices of children and youth who do not want to be defined by their special needs.
I have something to say.
What's wrong with him?
What a weirdo.
He looks like he doesn't have a clue. I feel so bad for her. She's pretty for someone in a wheelchair.
They are such an inspiration.
Don't sit beside him. Why does he act like that?
He looks crazy.
What's wrong with him?
What a weirdo.
He's so stupid. Why can't he just keep up with us? He can't control himself. Retard!
How did she get to be the ref?
She is such an idiot.
Can she keep up with us? She is such an idiot.
What would the world look like if all children with special needs were supported to realize their full potential? How is that different from the world as it is right now? This video is just one example of a way to answer these questions. There are many ways to participate. The Advocate's Office and the I Have Something to Say team want to hear what you have to say. We invite you to share your stories and experiences. Brought to you by the Office of the Provincial Advocate for Children and Youth and the I Have Something to Say project. For more info about how to participate, please visit our website. Phone number 416-325-5669. Toll free 1-800-263-2841. Skype child-youth-advocate for ASL users. Fax 416-325-5681.
We Have Something to Say embodies the honest dreams, faith, and essential needs of families of children and youth with special needs in our community. We are pleased to share highlights of the report on behalf of our colleagues on the We Have Something to Say Youth Advisory Committee and everyone who have been part of the process of creating this report. The report has been divided into 4 major sections: family and home, school and education, supports and services, transitions across the lifespan. Here are just a few highlights. Please read the whole report. One of the themes in our report is family and home. Families need more help. Often, families are forced to feel that they have to do everything on their own. For example, families have told us one of the most difficult life changes is the move from hospital to home. Parents lose the medical and emotional support from the medical team and are forced to handle all of the medical needs of their child on their own. Medical procedures, new and confusing equipment come home with them. The home becomes a miniature hospital.
Families face many challenges as they try to bridge the gap between needs and resources. Parents have said that they felt, however hard they tried to support their children with special needs, it was never enough.
One of the submissions said, growing up, I definitely felt like I was the only one with a family situation like mine. I didn't meet any other siblings of children with disabilities. Siblings have told us that they lose contact with their peers at school because of the unique and stressful family responsibilities they must take on. They told us that they feel scared and helpless, and they don't want to reach out for help because they feel people won't understand what they are going through. They really need to meet someone their own age who can understand. Please give children a chance to be children, and please give relief to parents who are trying their best. I think it is so important that for everyone to take the time to understand a person's unique need. Many children with special needs communicate in different ways, and their parents know them best, but worry that others won't take the time to understand what their child is saying. I think that when the voice of a nonverbal child, like my brother's, is unacknowledged, it can be dangerous. It scares me to imagine the times when my brother was thirsty and could not tell anyone unless someone makes the choice to ask. It scares me to imagine the times when my brother had to sit in his wheelchair with his shirt soaked with sweat for hours, and he could not ask for help. What scares me the most is that he could not tell us if he got hurt or if he was in pain.
A recurring theme in the submissions we received was the need to address the fact that one's special need does not define them as an individual. Youth mentioned that they want to be challenged and have similar life experiences as their peers. One of our youth advisors spoke fondly about inclusiveness within their family, stating that from the beginning, my mom raised me the same way as my brother. That helped a lot. I used to crawl around on the floor. My brother used to wrestle with me. I was just like any other kid. We need professionals to see us, parents and young people, as experts on our own lives. Young people want greater ownership and personal control over the decisions that affect their lives and futures.
Another theme in our report is school and education. At the most basic level, creating a safe, supportive, and learning environment was important to young people as any other aspect of education. Many young people with special needs told us that they experience bullying. For example, being humiliated by teachers or assistants who would yell at them in front of other classmates, or being picked on by peers. SAFE also includes cleaner environments for medically fragile students, accessibility of materials and buildings, and the protection from bullying. It also means that educators need to have a better understanding of special needs, and for students to be seen as individuals.
To succeed, we need the right supports. For example, we repeatedly heard that children and youth with special needs are not getting enough supports, such as timely assessments. Even if they do get assessed, the schools often don't follow through on the recommendations. Why is this? Perhaps a lack of training or resources. Youth and parents want and need to have individual education plans and faster access to independent placement and review committee process.
With individual education plans and the independent placement and review committees, as Rena has just said, young people want these processes to be quicker so that they can get the accommodations and supports they need to be successful at school. Students with special needs also want to be involved in these processes. We also heard from students saying that it was important for them, for educators, to follow the plans and accommodations laid out in these processes. With me, in my personal experience, I was misdiagnosed. This didn't allow me to get the proper supports, which affected my grades, and it also was hard for me to follow along when the teacher was teaching the material. It was made clear by reading the submissions that accommodation means something different to every child and youth. For example, matching the curriculum to the student's need, the environment, the classroom environment, and pacing the way the teacher paces when she's teaching the material. A common opinion was that an individualized approach needs to be taken. With me and my lived experience, I was never seen as an individual. I was given a cookie-cutter accommodation. I was never asked about what I thought, and I was just seen as a person with a learning disability. Students should be asked about their accommodations and should be included in these decisions.
We have dreams, ideas, and goals. One of our youth said in a submission, "We need teachers, not babysitter teachers, who will listen to our dreams and aspirations and help us find ways to realize them. Otherwise, our school lives are about limits rather than achievement." This is a common thing that many youth with special needs experience, and it all ties back to the stigma of inability that most people with special needs have to carry on a daily basis.
I was set with low expectations. I was never told I could get a university degree or that I would be able to go to graduate school or get a PhD. I was always told that I should do trade work because university would be hard for me. Why is it that whenever I tell people or educators that I want a master's or PhD, they look surprised? Because I have a special need, low expectations were put on me, and for a long time, I only lived up to those low expectations. Changing schools and classrooms can be difficult. The transition from elementary to high school is challenging, and moving from classroom to classroom and school to school. My experience from elementary to high school was difficult. When I graduated from elementary school, I was at about a grade 6 level, and later that same year when I started high school, I was expected to do grade 9 work. The transition for me was confusing and hard. There's a disconnect. I had one type of support in elementary school, and when I entered high school, it all changed.
Moving from high school to post-secondary education can be exceptionally difficult. This transition is one of the biggest milestones for many youth. The discouragement and lack of support in my transition to post-secondary school greatly affected me mentally and emotionally. I wanted to go to university, but I ran into many barriers. For one thing, the staff at the high school were not supportive of my decision to go directly to post-secondary education, and I felt like I was left to go through the transition on my own. They discouraged me from going directly to university, even though I had all the academic qualifications. When I came back for graduation, they were shocked to hear I was in university.
Supports and services. Section 1 of the Ontario Human Rights Code guarantees equal treatment for persons with special needs with respect to services, goods, and access to facilities. And yet, getting what is needed is so hard to achieve. Cost of providing care is a major concern for families. The provincial government provides approximately $5 billion each year on specialized services for young people and families with disabilities. But the actual cost of providing the appropriate supports for families and young people with special needs is estimated to be double that, $10 billion to $12 billion. Families must make up the difference by paying out of pocket.
We need a better system. Everyone can relate to the confusion and frustration that comes with trying to get information and being constantly directed towards many different people or places. It is exactly like trying to navigate a maze. In one of our submissions, a parent captured the experience. You see so many different doctors. You see so many different specialists. We've been bounced around based on our postal code alone. Or we get downtown and we're told we're not supposed to be here. We're supposed to be there.
The most common complaint regarding accessibility from all people with special needs in Ontario is inaccessible buildings. Children and youth with special needs often have difficulty accessing washrooms, stores, restaurants, and places offering entertainment or leisure activities because of physical barriers such as inaccessible buildings and sidewalks that are not passable in winter. Accessibility measures need to be improved in planes, buses, trains, and other transportation vehicles.
To continue what Holly said, accessibility needs to be a priority for public spaces. An example is a public transit. I am a regular user of public transit, and I have had several problems regarding accessibility, especially in times of delay or suspension, and being stranded in a non-accessible station, sometimes waiting on the platform for up to an hour. Currently, only 34 of the 69 subway stations in Toronto have elevators. A better plan needs to be made and followed to ensure that all stations are equally accessible. Another theme in our report is transitions across the lifespan. Our needs don't just magically disappear at age 18, so why do our supports? There needs to be a transition plan and assistance beyond high school. When young people age out of the support system for children and youth with special needs, families face huge caregiving challenges. At 18, young adults lose many resources they were once entitled to as children.
Novelette's story resembles many children and youth with special needs who expressed similar struggles in our project. Novelette lives with epidermolysis bullosa. She was receiving many services until she turned 18 years old. She says, "When I turned 18, everybody just dropped me. All my supports in the specialty fields that I was seeing at Sick Kids Hospital were gone. Nobody said, okay, this is where you can go next. I was left in the lurch."
The transition from school and employment is also difficult. Hiring disabled people should be a positive thing. They need to see what we can add to their success, said Patrick, a youth advisor. 44% of people with special needs in Canada are unemployed, and that is compared to roughly 7% of Canadians who do not have a special need. Hidden in the numbers are unknown stories about the lack of accessibility in the workplace and outright discrimination in hiring practices. We heard repeatedly that young people with special needs lack the opportunities that other youth enjoyed and struggle to find employment to match their abilities and capacity to work. With my transition from school to employment, it was difficult. I often struggle about whether I should disclose that I have a special need, or if my employer would be able to get me the accommodations to be successful at my work. I remember when I was working at a bakery, there was another person with a special need. After a few weeks, they got let go, and it worried me about telling my employer about my special need. Our colleague Tim wrote about his experience. After I completed my master's degree in England, I came back and I thought I would walk into a job. I didn't. I couldn't even get an interview. Oh, I can talk for hours on special needs and employment. People with special needs are hugely untapped. You start wondering, why can't I never get a job? What's wrong with me? Professionally, you have a giant hole in your resume that keeps getting bigger. It's incredibly frustrating.
Our report has many recommendations. Here are a few. Bring multiple ministries together to address gaps in services for youth with special needs. Involve youth in decision-making. Change the way youth are perceived by government and people who provide services. And offer better support for our families. We hope that after reading this report, you will understand the impact your decisions make on our lives. We don't want this to be just another document that is filed away and forgotten about. We are real people with real needs and rights, not just users of services. And we want you to listen to what young people are saying in this report. We have something to say. Please listen. Act on our recommendations.
Join the We Have Something to Say movement.
Share your stories and ideas for change at #WeHaveSomethingToSay.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking us through the report and key findings, and for your dedication to amplifying the voices of all young people with special needs and their families. You're each an inspiration and a role model for others. This report is only the beginning of an important dialogue to support young people and their families. Please join me again with a round of applause for all of our speakers. So we will now take the next 10 minutes to open the floor for questions from the media only. And I will ask that you ask one question at a time so that the panel has the opportunity to answer. Go ahead.
During the creation of this report, there was the controversy over autism funding. How did that impact this report? Want me to do it again? I was wondering how the controversy over autism therapy funding impacted this report.
Erwin? Yeah.
Well, see if you guys want to answer that. I would say, so let me say the making of this report, the effort that went in is probably 2 years of our office saying we needed to gather the voice of young people with special needs. We needed to learn from those people in the room and others who work and live with young people with special needs about how to elevate the voice, how to do it in video and art and through people who can speak, like Holly did for her brother. And that was well before the controversy, but we certainly had young people who are affected by autism or their caregivers as part of the report. I would say that it didn't particularly affect the report itself, that the themes certainly include the controversy that's happening today. That in many ways, the controversy that's happening is about a wait list. And I think that what the young people in this report are saying is that we need to focus on the child. And for me, what I've learned from the young people we've met is that every child in the province, every child, the children in this room, the children who informed this report, children in care, First Nations children, your children, my children, every child, when they have a need, should have that need met when they need it, period. And that's the province that I think this report aspires to. It's the bar that young people with special needs are holding up for our province. It's not about wait lists. It's about when we need something, we get what we need. And I think that is the process, the mountain that the young people are trying to move, that the report is speaking to. And obviously, if we look at what's happening around the autism file, I guess is what it's called, we're not there yet. And I think that report, this report speaks to that in that way.
So are there any other questions?
Hi, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what you will do next with this report in terms of this afternoon, and what kind of commitment or any specifics on what you're hoping for from your meeting this afternoon with the minister and others.
So what we're hoping for is that everyone reads the report and reads through the recommendations, and a blueprint is created, and that young people with special needs are included in this blueprint to make change. In the process, yeah.
To go off of what Sammy said, we are giving you all our resources. We're just asking people of the government and government officials to act on our recommendations, and we already give you all the resources. We just need help putting the act in motion.
After today, I hope that it will be the first step where social support could be provided to siblings who are experiencing a lot of stress. Respite care for parents. Parents can sleep an extra hour, which makes a huge difference. I hope after today, it will be the first step where more people, families of children and youth with special needs, can feel the relief of having a ramp in their backyard and having a converted van where they can go on trips as a family.
Thank you, guys. We'll take one more question, if there are any. I guess not. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for attending the first portion of this afternoon. We're going to break for 15 minutes, and then please come back. We'll continue with our listening table.